Today, we're going to be talking about entertainment and achieving social impact, something that I truly believe in. We all ultimately want to make things that are entertaining, but at the same time, we want to feel like at the same moment we are actually doing right in the world, that we're doing something that's actually going to help someone else, even if it's an old lady across the street. The thing that we look at, there's amazing people like this guy. When we're going to make something that's going to change the world, how do we live up to the expectations we have in our own mind, like what he does, or what she does, or what he does? He's got a lot of money. He can do so much good. The problem becomes we constantly kind of put these measures on ourselves of what we believe we should be doing or we should be accomplishing, and that's hard because sometimes we're our own worst enemy. The question becomes, for us, hold on, where is it? What is the question? What is the question? This is not my friend today. There he is again. Ask me the question. There it is. The question becomes, ultimately what we should ask ourselves is, what does it take to create entertainment and make a difference? What do we have to do to bridge that gap? I'll start by telling you, a story about my first project, because it starts with an idea. And kind of the first thing that kind of put me on this path was this movie, was Super Size Me. Now, when I first had this idea, people thought I was crazy. This is the stupidest idea ever. It's the dumbest thing you could ever think about. You're going to eat what? You're going to why? What's the whole point behind this? But the goal with this movie wasn't like, I'm going to change the world with this movie. The goal with us, we're going to make a movie that I think can deal with an important subject in an entertaining way. That was the mission. I'm going to make a movie that I think is going to be smart, funny, simultaneously, hopefully have some broad appeal. What happened after that film was remarkable. And here's a scene that I think is a tremendous standout that's an example of kind of what that bridge represents.
The one place where the impact of our fast food world has become more and more evident is in our nation's schools.
Can I get a shot of your lunch right there? You got a cookie and some fries. You gonna have anything else? Nope.
Ketchup.
Do you think, judging by the food that's in there, on a whole, do you think the kids make healthy choices for lunch here?
And we try to teach them to make the right choices in life.
Yeah. You got 2 bags of Rebels, a pretzel, a Twix bar, and a Gatorade.
Laura, are you sharing that with us? All for yourself?
How many people actually just have fries for lunch a day?
A lot of them do get fries. A lot of them do have their lunches.
Oh, they do?
They'll have a
So
sandwich,
it's like a
and
side.
it's like a side dish. Yes.
Can I get curly fries, please?
Just the fries.
Is that your whole lunch too?
Well, I'm getting milk. It's my calcium and vegetable. Can I have some fries, please?
But you don't think you should take away things like I tell you something, Swiss rolls? I used to eat packs of these all the time. By just offering these up on the lunch line, are we setting the kids up to make bad choices?
No, I don't believe so, because a child, just like you saw a child, she's not going to solely eat just that. And a child isn't going to pick up 2 or 3.
But that's all she bought.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean this is all she's going to eat.
Right.
You have to follow her back to her table and say,
We got to go find Lori, see if that's all she's going to eat.
This is where schools turn a blind eye. The student with the French fries probably brought a bag lunch with real food. The girl with the chips is probably sharing them with someone else. Out of sight, out of mind.
No, we wanted to see. The question was, did you bring a brown bag with you? Your whole lunch.
I brought this.
Oh, you brought that. You brought a Coke. So you brought the Coke. That's all. So she brought a Coke, and then the rest of the stuff. What's amazing about that scene, what I love about this, so Super Size Me came out, it did what none of us thought it would do. I mean, it kind of transcended conversation and became like a real lightning rod. But what I love about what the film did was it became incredibly personal to people. It became a real personal mission for them. This scene in particular, it was why I chose it, is the film started being shown in schools. Like, teachers were showing it. And so one school out in Long Island had an assembly where all the classes came, 7th, 8th, 9th graders in middle school, and they showed it to the entire school. In the middle of this scene being shown, one of the kids leans over to their friend and there's like, oh man, like that school lunch program that's our school lunch program. Like the junk they're feeding those kids is the junk they're feeding us. You know what? Tomorrow we should boycott the school lunch program. Brown bag it. And so they start passing notes around to the kids in school like, hey, boycott the school lunch program, brown bag it. Hey, psst, we're not gonna eat the school lunch tomorrow, brown bag it. So after a week, about half the kids did it. After about 2 weeks, all the kids were doing it. Suddenly, like, parents are calling the school saying, why are my kids asking me to pack them a lunch? Which parents should never call and sue that. I mean, you should actually pack a lunch. And so all of these parents ascended upon the school. Members of the Board of Education ascended upon the school. And in 2 weeks, these kids, these little, 8th grade activists, changed their whole school lunch program simply because they saw this scene in the film. I mean, it was an incredible thing. And what came out of that, yeah. But this is a perfect example, and this is why I think it's really important to think about this. You can't plan for change. You can't say, I'm going to make this and we're going to change the world. All these things are going to happen. It's a great idea. Doesn't happen. You can hope for change. That's the greatest thing you can do. What you can do is you can plan for impact. So if certain things start to affect people in certain ways, here's what we can do. And there's a long tail of planning that goes into something like this to plan for that level of impact. But you can hope to affect change, but you need to plan for impact. And it's tough. Nobody knew that this was going to resonate with kids in the way that it did. We didn't think it was going to resonate with the kids in the way that it did, so we weren't really planned for that. We hoped to affect change. But then what happened was we reacted. We started seeing where things were hitting. We started seeing how people were changing their minds, and we reacted. A perfect example is this. So as soon as we started seeing how kids were reacting to the movie and how they were responding to it, I said, we need to make an educational version of Super Size Me. So the first thing we did is we went back through, we created all of these support materials, we got educational groups involved, and we created educational materials for K through 12. So one for middle schools, one for high schools, where teachers could use this as a teaching device, both in health, both in physical activity, both in social studies, government studies, you name it. And the other thing we did was we made it affordable for everyone. Are there any teachers in here? Anybody who's an educator? You are? So any teachers will tell you teaching materials are shittily expensive. It's ridiculous. Like these companies want to rake teachers over the coals because they see it as this little market where they can make a lot of money. And it's the government or it's the state, we can charge them a lot of money. And so my friend, who I said we need to make an educational version, he goes, oh, that's great, we're going to make so much money on that. Because they charge for just a DVD, an educational DVD, if you look in any magazine, a teacher magazine, they charge like $150 for these things. Yeah, it's crazy. $149.95, $169.95. And I said, that's ridiculous. I said, we should make it $39.95. I said, make it a little more than the regular DVD, but make it cheap enough where anyone can have access to it. And we did. We made it $39.95, and suddenly everybody bought it. Every teacher that was out there, everybody that had a kid that they thought it could make a difference to. And the greatest thing you can do if you want to affect change is make it accessible to everyone. The more you can make things accessible to everyone, the more people you will touch, the more change you'll affect. That's the greatest thing we realized coming on the heels of Super Size Me. Which brings me to this. I love Mark Twain. This is my favorite quote by Mark Twain, which are the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. So for me, this came on the heels of Super Size Me. After this film, my goal, as I was a kid growing up, was to make movies. It's all I ever wanted to do. But after I saw what we did with Super Size Me, I said there's a chance to use entertainment for good. We can use our powers for good. We can actually do something that can make people think, we can entertain, but at the same time, potentially make a difference in the long run. This was me, right out of film school. And the movie that made me want to make movies when I was a kid, it wasn't documentaries. I don't know many documentary filmmakers that grew up watching documentaries going, God, I can't wait to make those. It's like, you're not saying that at 13. I was 13 saying, I can't wait to make that. This was the movie that made me want to make movies. I was 10 years old. I was in a theater in West Virginia. I saw Michael Ironside make that guy's head explode, and I said, holy shit, I want to do that. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. And so I wanted to be Rick Baker. I wanted to be Tom Savini. I wanted to do makeup special effects. So that's the path I wanted to be on. And then all that started to change once I went to college, once I started kind of making films, and specifically after Super Size Me. Because what we did with Super Size Me was after we made that film, we already had the idea for what was next even before we finished that movie. Like on the heels of Super Size Me, we made a show for FX called 30 Days. 30 Days, which is very much the idea of Super Size Me. Where we take somebody whose life is kind of antithetical to the situation we're going to put them in and immerse them in this world where they kind of have to defend their beliefs, they have to explore this topic, they have to kind of understand the way the world works. And we got this idea, while we were finishing Super Size Me, before we even submitted the film to Sundance, we had a test screening, because that's what you do. If you want to see how your film does, you have a test screening. So we stood outside of the Angelica right around the corner. Myself and my editors, we had some clipboards, because clipboards make you look 25% more official. We stood out front, and we said, excuse me, would you like to come to the test screening of a new independent documentary film? And people were like, oh, yes, I'd love to. So we signed people up. We got their phone numbers. We called them. We had about 50 people come to Goldcrest over on the west side. We showed them the movie. After the film, myself and the 2 editors came down front. We started asking questions. We said, what do you think of the film? Blah, blah, blah. A woman said, I just want to say thank you for making this movie. Thank you. Thank you for showing the world how these terrible corporations are manipulating us and lying to us, and they are just ripping our souls apart. And a guy on the other side of the room is like, what movie did you watch? Like, what are you talking about? So they said, what are you talking? You're crazy. And they start yelling at one another. I lean back to the 2 editors and I'm like, this is awesome. So we go back into the edit the next day and we're like, how can we take that visceral reaction? How can we take that passion, that energy, that excitement that people have for something that they're so personal about and apply it to something else? And out of that conversation came 30 Days. So here is a scene from season 1 of 30 Days, the minimum wage episode.
It's day 10 of my 30 days on minimum wage, and the physical labor is starting to get to me. Although I've been careful not to make my wrist injury worse, I've decided that I should go see a doctor today just to be on the safe side.
See those muscles? Look at that. Look out.
You're definitely doing that the hard way.
Because Alex and I don't have health insurance, I had to go to the free clinic to see a doctor.
Due to limited doctors tonight, we're only going to be able to take about 20 people. So if anybody has a serious problem, you really feel bad and you don't think you'll get in, we highly recommend that you go ahead and go to the emergency room, okay?
At the clinic, I end up being number 35, so I won't get to see the doctor today.
I was here at 2:30.
2:30.
2:30.
And how many people were in line in front of you?
5.
This is not like the only free clinic in Columbus, but there's several of them and they're just swamped, all of them.
I don't know what to do about my wrist. I can't miss work to go to the doctor, and I can't get into the free clinic.
Somebody said to me that we don't have health care in America, we have sick care.
That's basically right. If you have a heart attack and you have no money and you go into the ER, you can have open heart surgery and you'll get real good care. But if you need some kind of preventive care to keep you from having a heart attack, you're out of luck.
Why are you guys here?
Because we were diagnosed with diabetes.
You both have diabetes.
Right.
Yeah. And you have no health care.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Can't afford it.
Yeah, what would you do if there wasn't this clinic?
I don't know. I'd probably just kill myself. I mean, there's nothing much that I can do. I mean, without help.
Two things happened on the heels of this show. You know, the first one was I got everybody in my office health insurance, which was number one. They were very excited about that. The second thing was this issue resonated deeply with people all across the country. You know, at the time there were all these conversations about raising the minimum wage, raising the federal minimum wage, and we were like, this is never going to happen. So one of the things that we did is, so we took copies of this and we sent it to every member of every state legislature in the United States, and we turned this into, again, a lightning rod conversation. Use this show, use this as a tool. Because one of the things that happens is people don't understand problems unless they really can understand what's happening with someone else. And what shows like this do is they help create empathy. They help really someone understand what it's like to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, to see the world through someone else's eyes. Once we started sending this out to state legislatures, they started saying, oh my gosh, I get it. I understand. And so the next thing I know is on the heels of this show, I'm speaking in Connecticut, I'm speaking in Ohio, I'm speaking to all these state reps about how important it is for them to raise the minimum wage $1, $2, raise it to $10 an hour. And slowly but surely across the country, all of these states started raising the state minimum wage, not the federal minimum wage. Again, how do you start to impact change? Think locally, think globally, act locally. That's what we continue to have that mission. We want to change the world, but until you change your backyard, you can't change anything. On the heels of this show, again, there's big ideas and there's small ideas. You can affect things on a greater good and on a personal good. One of my favorite episodes from that season of 30 Days was the Gay Straight episode, where a guy from Michigan, former guy in the military, moves to the Castro to live with Ed, to kind of understand kind of what the homosexual lifestyle is all about, you know? And what happens during that show is Ryan is transformed. He's completely transformed. He's like, oh my gosh, you know, you face the same problems I do, you love people just like I do, you have a family just like I do. But for me, the greatest story that came out of that show was a week later when Ed was walking down the street, and he stopped in the middle of the Castro by a guy, and he goes, hold on a second, you're Ed. He goes, yeah, I'm Ed. And he goes, can I just give you a hug? So this guy just hugs Ed in the middle of the street, and he says, I have to tell you something. He goes, I came out to my parents 7 years ago when I was living in Kansas, and they threw me out of the house. They said, "You're dead to us. We want nothing to do with you. How could you do this to us?" And so he moved to San Francisco. He goes, "I moved somewhere where I hoped I could find support. I could find people who were like me," and I did. But I kept calling my parents. I kept writing to them. They would never speak to me. And he goes, "And last week, an hour after your show aired, they called me for the first time." And so what you can do with entertainment, what you can do with this type of media is incredible. You can touch people in ways that can change them and change the world. And for me, that's what I strive to do. But one of the things that we also strive to do is continue to own our space. That's a really important thing for me, is that we own the world that we're working in. I want to own my space. I don't only want to own my derivative space, as we did with Super Size Me, where we had this idea. How can we take this idea into another idea? How can we keep this train going? So I don't only want to own my derivative space, I want to own my derivative impact. I want to keep the impact going. I want to keep the impact from one thing going into the next thing, links in a chain. Everything should marry into the next idea. What we did after that was we had an idea for a movie called The Greatest Movie Ever Sold, where you can imagine after Super Size Me, I was not very welcome in a lot of brand conversations with people. And so, but we wanted to make a movie all about advertising and marketing and have the whole thing be paid for by advertising and marketing. And slowly but surely, we got brands to come on board to make this movie that kind of ripped the curtain back on product placement and advertising in a way that had never been done before, and at the same time gave them a seat at the table where they could be a part of this conversation at the same time while we kind of poked fun of them or make fun of them and poked them with a stick. It was remarkable. The film did really well, got incredibly well received, and brands finally started to see that there's a way for them to be involved in entertainment that can have an impact, that can make a difference, that isn't just a commercial. How can we do something that isn't me selling you a widget? And the coolest thing that came out of that conversation was this: GE Focus Forward. So I met Beth Comstock, who's the CEO of GE, who was familiar with Greatest Movie Ever Sold, and she goes, "How can we do something with our brand?" And at the time, GE wanted to remind everyone that they're this innovative company, that they have been innovating for 100 years, that they've really changed the world in a lot of ways. And I said, well, the greatest thing that GE can do, rather than tell me about all your amazing MRI machines and the things that you're making, is champion people who are actually making a difference. Show me the people who are like you. Show me the people that have your DNA. The people who have an alignment of ideologies of wanting to create an impact and create a change for social good. And out of that came this film series. And what we did is I started to chase all my doc friends. So I chased all these people, from Steve James to Lucy Walker, Al Maisels, who just passed away, the man himself, to so many different folks that I felt could come in and have a great voice. And so we ended up making 30 different short films about people who are changing the world. Here's a look at the film Fire with Fire by Academy Award winner Ross Kaufman.
Take one.
Is it hard for you to say those words? We're trying to cure cancer.
That's a really good question, why it's hard to say we want to cure cancer. We do. And I think sometimes it's hard actually to think that you might actually succeed.
Patients that we're treating on this clinical trial have absolutely no other options left for them. These are patients who are unfortunately destined to die of their disease, and in a fairly short amount of time.
Emily Whitehead, 554.
So Emma is incredibly matter-of-fact about all of this stuff. This was a child who had had her leukemia come back twice. The parents were looking for a miracle.
What we've learned how to do is train the immune system to recognize and then kill tumor cells.
It's a procedure where we collect their T cells, and they are infected with a virus that will genetically change them so that they will now see and react against their leukemia cells.
And we actually use the HIV virus to do that.
So you're taking the HIV virus and infecting healthy cells with it to help kill cancer?
Yes. The virus has been engineered so that it can't cause disease anymore. But it still retains the ability to reprogram the immune system so that it will now attack cancer cells. We call those modified immune cells serial killer cells. Each infused cell can kill more than 1,000 different tumor cells.
But the reality is the dramatic responses of cancer to new treatments are very unusual. We need to make it clear when we talk to a family that it may not work. Emma was given her T-cell treatment, and within a few days, she was very sick. She had breathing difficulties, she had blood pressure difficulties. We knew that she could not have gotten any sicker without actually dying.
But then a remarkable thing happened. The T cells were growing, they were starting to fight the cancer.
Within hours, Emma's fever disappeared.
It was like the calm after the storm. The clouds went away, and she woke up, and there was no leukemia. When that child survived, it was, of course, an amazing event.
Amazing. This film was paid for. Some was paid for by a brand. Some was paid for by GE. What's happened since these films came out, they've now played all around the world. They've been seen by 75+ million people. The filmmakers actually own these films. Now Ross Kaufman's turning this idea into a feature film. I mean, it's an incredible thing what you can do with the right idea and the right kind of change mechanism. On the heels of this, I got a call from that guy. That's Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft, who said, I want to do something with my company, Vulcan Productions. We want to get people to understand and think about the economy. So they came out, we sat down. On the heels of GE Focused Forward Films came the idea of We the Economy, 20 short films you can't afford to miss. They originally wanted to make a feature film, which I said, no one's going to watch a feature film about the economy. It's a terrible idea. I said, but what if we reached out to a lot of other great filmmakers? People like Bob Balaban, Adam McKay, James Schamus, Catherine Hardwicke, who did Twilight, Mary Herron, who did American Psycho. What if we get all of these great filmmakers to do short films about the economy? And what came out of that was this incredible film series. And here's a look at Mary Herron's healthcare film.
You have a terrible headache and you're experiencing visual disturbances. Is it like flashes of light or more like a dimming feeling?
Is one worse than the other?
Definitely.
Which one?
Which one do you have?
Both. I don't want to die.
Oh, we'll try not to let you die, but it might be pretty expensive.
We'll start with a simple blood test.
I'll do that.
No, it's okay, I've got it. I do about 100 of these a day. You won't feel a thing.
It's true, she's terrific. I'm not very good at all, but if I do it, we can charge you more, and the hospital earns more, I earn more, and everyone's happy. Try to stay still. Let's run a chem lab, urinalysis, and a cervical spine x-ray.
That sounds expensive.
It depends where you are. A cervical x-ray will cost you $2,100 in Kodiak, Alaska, but only $200 in La Mesa, Texas.
Why?
Sorry. States regulate healthcare, not Washington. Creates that rich tapestry that makes America great.
But we can do it for $500.
Seems like a lot of tests.
Ow! Shh, it is. But we don't want you to sue us when you find out that we missed your brain tumor.
I have a brain tumor?
We'll do a functional MRI and a PET scan, and let's get this with and without GAD.
What's GAD?
It's a dye we put in your veins for contrast, so that means we'll do the procedure twice, no worries.
Do I have to pay twice?
Yes. This would be so much cheaper in Belgium or Argentina or South Africa. You know what they say, for the price of a colonoscopy in the US, you can fly to Switzerland, rent a chalet, ski for a week, and get a colonoscopy. We're gonna play something soothing so you can relax.
Do you want light jazz, soft rock, or the history of U.S. healthcare?
Light jazz?
It's stuck on Channel 3.
The history of U.S. healthcare, good choice.
Hello, and welcome to my podcast.
You can see all those films at wetheeconomy.com. We launched this in October, and in 3 months, before even Christmas, over 30 million people, 30 million unique views of people who'd watched movies about the economy. Amazing. Would never happen. And so we created this an interactive website. We created the ability for people to share them on an app. Again, gave it all away for free. The goal for us was how do we reach as many people as possible. The other thing we did was we got more distribution partners for this than we'd ever had for anything in my life. I called everybody on the phone, They said, well, we really want to have it for ourselves. We don't want anyone else to have it. I'm a real believer in co-opetition. There's times when we should compete, and then there's times when we should come together to make great things happen. And this was one of those instances. You know, we got more than 55 distribution partners came on to put the We the Economy films out to the world. It was the first time ever that Netflix had put a short film on Netflix. And you know what happened was the end result. You know, now to date, probably 40+ million people or more have seen all of the films. It was a great thing to kind of experiment with, and at the same time show that if your ROI is much more about an ROE, like if it's about education, and for us it was a return on education much more than a return on investment, then you can get people to play along. You can get great talent to come on board, and for us that was the greatest accomplishment we could have had. With my show, Inside Man, we wanted to continue to dive into important topics. And here's one of my favorite episodes from this season, which is all about trash in America. Hey, how are you? I'm Morgan.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Come on in.
I'm meeting with Bea Johnson, an author and proponent of something known as the zero-waste lifestyle. The aim of the zero-waste lifestyle is to reduce as much solid waste as possible and send little to no trash at the end of the day to landfills or incinerators. Since 2008, Bea and her family have been living the philosophy by sticking to the 5 R's. Refuse, that's anything that they don't need. Reduce, the amount of things they actually need. Reuse, everything, that means 0 disposable items. Recycle, and finally, to rot, as in compost. Since adopting the 5 R's, this is the amount of waste her family of 4 sends to a landfill in an entire year.
On the heels of this show, same thing as we did with Super Size Me, now we're creating educational materials to get it out into schools to allow people to share them with kids. And this is kind of what gets me the most excited about the possibility of gaming. You know, gaming is an industry now that continues to expand, continues to explode, to reach people in ways that we've never seen before. You know, right now in the United States, 67% of US households play video games. More than 2/3 of the households play games. You know, the average age of the gamer in the United States, 34. The average age of the gamer who buys games is 39. You know, these are people with families. These are people who are planning families, who already have kids. The average years that they've been playing video games, 12. You know, what I love is that people love to continue to put this in this box of being a kid's market, but it's so much more than that. And the impact that you can have through it is so much grander. You know, the greatest change that I think we're continuing to see is this, the fact that 40% of all gamers now in the US are female. There's a huge batch of ladies that have made their way over to understand what us guys have known for so long, which the games are so cool. 64%, me being one of them, believe that video games have a positive influence on their children. What they can mean, what they can do for their kids, what is that impact? What is the creative change that happens within their children? And you know, there's also a huge business. And this is one of the things that I think is interesting for folks like us. In 2013, it was over $90 billion gaming industry worldwide. Projecting in 2015, they're projecting it to be over $110 billion for this year. The film business for last year, just to kind of put that in perspective for you, which is my business, film business for last year, $35 billion. This is growing at such an exponential number that we need to recognize the impact that it can have and what we can do to make that change happen. Like my kid and I play this all the time. The creativity that comes from it I find to be really exciting. This is their Lego. This is like this new thing that I love doing with my kid as much as he loves doing it by himself. And that's one of the things. 48%, almost half of parents play video games with their children at least weekly. What we can do as families and as parents with our children in this industry is immense. It should be something as simple as Personal Zen, where this little app, I don't know how many of you downloaded this, it's amazing, but this is an app that was developed with neuroscientists, which lowers your stress and anxiety rate just by playing it. Amazing. Or it could be something like Zombies Run, which forces kids to kind of get up and actually have physical activity while playing a game, something that Connect, I think, has done an incredible job of doing. You know, one of the things that I've continued to do with my industry and with what I make and what I believe in is try to create things that live at the highest level. What I want to do is I want to create something that is seen as entertainment, that reaches kind of the highest platform, that is like these types of games, that isn't medicine. I think part of what educational games are seen as, or games for change, are seen as being medicine. Our goal, what we need, what I charge you with and what I charge myself with every day, is how can we make that medicine taste like cotton candy? That's what I want. I want to give you broccoli, but I want it to be like Pop Rocks in your mouth. I want it to be the greatest thing ever. I want to give you the cotton candy, but I'm actually giving you broccoli, something that's actually going to make a difference. Because the greatest thing that we can do, creating entertainment is only the beginning for us. That's step one. The greatest thing that you can do is to have it in the hands, the hearts, and the minds of your audience. Once you do that, that will be your greatest accomplishment. Thank you so much for coming, guys. I appreciate it.